Warning: the terror of a new feature film,
The Empty Space, will take you beyond the slasher, beyond the madness,
beyond anything you can imagine.
Don't go with him.
And once you enter,
the only escape will be to go beyond the empty space. The Empty Space, the new film by Andrew Hada.
What's up, guys? Welcome to the Bomb Squad. We're back with another exhilarating episode of our review show. I'm director Andrew Hada, and yes, I'm still promoting The Empty Space, and I'll never stop promoting. You can't stop me. The only thing I'll do is also promote the other movies. It's just going to get worse. Welcome to the Bomb Squad. We have another guest, Stephanie Strahan, film enthusiast. She's the only person I know who can tell you not just the director of movies, but also who was the producer. It's I don't know. Nobody should know that information, but she does. How are you doing?
Skill.
I don't even know my producer, and he's sitting right next to you. How are you doing?
I'm good. Yeah, I'm excited to join.
So before we talk about what you did on The Empty Space, which sounds like accusatory, tell us a little bit about how you got into film and everything.
I always wanted to get into film. I bounced growing up. I think I went through every phase of director, writer, actor. I went through all of that, and then slowly, one by one, little things would throw me off of it. I used to be in plays, and then one person was like, "You're too tall," and I was like, "Fuck this! I'm never acting again." So, didn't take much to dissuade me. And when I went to the University of Oregon, at the time they only had a film certificate. So you just take 4 or 5 classes and it just get added on. And I went to talk to the advisor of the program, who told me that they were trying, and they had been trying for a couple of years, to get the first bachelor's program of film on the West Coast other than California. And they already had a curriculum and everything. And he was like, "You're welcome to take it. I encourage you to take it. I don't know if it'll be done by that time." And I was like, "Yeah, I'll do it." So I took all the classes and everything. And then thankfully, right as I was about to graduate, they passed it. However, they did tell me at the time I had gotten a Bachelor of Science. I was majoring in psychology. And they were like, "Well, you have to get a Bachelor of Arts." So I had to take 2 years of Spanish in one term.
Yeah.
And if you think, did I learn anything from that? I did not. Absolutely awful at Spanish. So I was the first graduate. Me and I think there were 2 other people. We were the first graduates of the program, which is one of those really cool bragging rights, but that's kind of really all it is, because it's not like I had people to network with or anything, because I was
Yeah. Right. Damn.
So again, one of those things I always say, "Oh, hey, I'm the first," and then they're like,
Right.
"Oh, cool, what do you do?" And I'm like, "Oh, nothing with film."
I'm like the rest of us. They're like, "Art degree, 2009. Did you see what just happened to the economy, or are you aware?
Were you a child?"
We'll never make any money the rest of your life." Yeah.
So that's crazy, especially because UTEP had the same thing where they were like, "Oh, we might not have a film program, but we're starting one. But you're welcome to take the classes." And I was like, "Cool." And then I registered at NMSU the next day.
Also a brand new film school.
You're not gonna trap me. And so so also that's why we were like, once we wanted to film, we were like, "Oh, well, let's ask Stephanie if she wants to come down and help us out." We kind of did everything, kept us in order when we could.
Yeah.
It was also weird because the film, I mean, the way I so used to shooting everything myself that when and Josh helps, but
Not really.
I know how he helps.
And so It was like trying to take over from like a one man band. But yeah, Stephanie, how was your experience on filming The Empty Space?
What a loaded question.
How was, and keep in mind I edit these, so
It was great.
the sun is changing behind me like it's nighttime.
It was good. It was cool. I got to. There were other people on the crew who, like, you'd also worked with in news who knew things, and it was also because it's one of those smaller features. You get to talk more and like interact. I would say with different people. So it's like George would talk to me about the sound, play with some of the camera equipment and things like that. So that's good for learning, which is things that you wouldn't get to do normally on like bigger sets.
Yeah, I would say other than Val, Stephanie's like the person who has the most to do in the film because you hear Stephanie like 4 times in this movie, and then also like editing it and production. Like out of all the crew members, Stephanie is the one who you see the most because you did the slate like more than anyone else.
Oh, nice.
So you're just all over this, like all like as I was looking back at her behind the scenes, and it's just every picture is of Stephanie. That's what we get. It's like, and then sometimes Dave is in the background too. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. I think, like, yeah, that's what's always good about it. And so now, what's your favorite film, and what do you think the best film ever made is? Because they are not always the same.
That's a good question. Well, as you can see, the poster in the back is actually mine of Jaws. I always list Jaws as my favorite film. I always feel, and I'm sure you guys feel this way too, with film, picking one is like impossible. I can pick
It
like a
changes
million
so
of them. So I go with Jaws, one, because I kind of like sharks, which is really, that's a basic reason. But I also think the cinematography in that is incredible. Acting's incredible. The suspense is incredible. I like the history behind it. I'm really big into film history. That's kind of, I love film history, and I love the history behind Jaws, kind of how it was the first blockbuster and everything like that.
Yeah.
So I would probably pick it for both. Probably if I had more time thinking about it, I could come up with some other things. But there's so many things about Jaws that I love. I love the acting. I love the scene on the boat where they're talking about the Indianapolis. I think that scene is like one of the best acted scenes in film history. So that's my choice.
Nice. It's a good choice, yeah.
And yet you've never seen Duel.
I have not seen Duel.
Duel's pretty good.
Duel with the trucker. Josh, have you seen Duel?
No, of course not.
Oh.
Okay.
I'm being a film Twitter person where you're like, actually,
I'm not a true fan.
you're not a true Spielberg head.
Yeah, sorry.
So,
Amazing.
I did also, Regal told me I had a free ticket to the new Indiana Jones, and I can't say I was overly excited by that. Okay, that's not him, though, anymore.
Oh, yeah. Now it's James Mangold.
Yeah. Although
like,
we didn't give a free ticket, I was like, eh.
yeah.
They were also like, hey, you want a free ticket to The Flash? And then I said no, and then they showed up at my house, and they're like, we're taking you whether you want to or not. And you're going to tell Stephen King you loved it.
Please.
The Flash came out this week when we're recording it, guys. It's not dated. You're wrong. Yeah, so as always, we let the guest pick, and which is weird because she didn't take my suggestion of 65, which I showed her when she was in town for the premiere. No, 70 picked Fish Tank. Fish Tank is a film from 2009. It's not rated, which I always think is interesting. It was directed and written by Andrea Arnold. It stars Katie Jarvis, Michael Fassbender, and someone else whose name starts with too many syllables for me to pronounce. Joshua, why don't you tell me what this movie... take me into the Fish Tank.
It's not. A white trash British girl has the worst mother alive, and her life is kind of a train wreck.
Yeah.
Until she meets a hot older man who turns it all around. No, he's a sexual predator. It doesn't get better because of him. So
Yeah. For some reason, this is a movie where having a sexual predator doesn't make things better. Um,
One of
so,
those.
Rare exceptions.
yeah.
Well, I guess most Kevin Spacey movies would be the exception, but we didn't know that at the time, right?
Right. So, Stephanie, why did you pick this movie?
Well, I really wanted to do a female director, and I saw this film at the Portland International Festival when it was still on the festival circuit, and it led to a lot of debate, which was funny because I was telling Josh about that, and then when we were watching it later, I was like, why was this a debate? I was so clearly right, which I'll tell you about in a second. But I thought it had a lot of different layers to it. I'm always really intrigued by films that are very have some shade of like neorealism to it, so they're using actual sets. And I feel like women, there's plenty of men directors who do this too, but women in general tend to also really utilize the just picking people who aren't actors um, from the street and then turning out these incredible performances.
Yeah.
And the two movies I picked, that was the case. The one that I didn't end up picking, that was also the case for that film, because I always find that fascinating how directors are able to pull such amazing performances. And I think it's a really good film, and I also think it has, even though it's very quiet and straightforward, it has a lot of different character complexity and layers to it.
Totally.
Nice. So let me ask you a very dumb question. When you because this is like right before Michael Fassbender became like real big. So when you were watching like Inglorious Bastards, where you're like, oh, that's the dude from Fish Tank.
Yeah.
I can't remember. I was thinking about that because I can't remember what I saw him first in. I feel like I'd seen him in something already. It might have been Hunger, because he had been in other things, but just nothing big. I full disclosure, I have a massive crush on Michael Fassbender.
I know someone else who did too.
So I won't pretend not. At least in this film, it's hard too, because you're like, oh my god, he's gorgeous. But
Right. And I think that's yeah.
Like the whole.
And I was gonna say one of the things that's cool about this movie is that it definitely feels like everyone feels of their environment, and like you said, like the lead actress, they just kind of found her because she was fighting with her boyfriend. Is the story, and so I think that like really adds, and even Michael Fassbender. I mean, now it was obvious to be like, oh yeah, that guy's like a movie star. But like back then, the fact that he hired him, I think it adds to like the kind of realistic feeling they're going for, you know.
Totally.
And I think it does a good job of like portraying, you know, because like the Michael Fassbender's character is like he's a preying on the girl, but they do a good job of showing because it's from her point of view. So you see and it's kind of like what Stephanie was alluding to, where they have like oh, you don't know, like there's some discussion, and I think it's because since it's her point of view, it's giving us a more cheery version of her, you know, or of him, you know.
Well, I don't like. I get part of the debate, like I guess that we were talking about, is like, is he like an active predator? Like his plan all along was to hit up, or is he just a scumbag who's like drifting through life and like fucking whoever, and then like, and I kind of feel like he's almost like a loser who's just like, oh, I'm like a hot loser. I could just do what I want in life.
Right. I think it was like so much of an ego boost for him to do that, and like, because he wasn't like weird to the youngest sister too, which is like, if I feel like if this movie like would have wanted to be like, this guy is the most evil guy, like he would have been weird towards everybody. But it does kind of feel like he was just like this guy going through this like crisis, and he just made the worst fucking decision ever. And
yeah, like he like regrets it. He's like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. Yeah, he's like, oh, cheating on my wife constantly is okay, but not with a child. I've really put my foot in it this time. That's how I saw it anyway.
I think that's true. I feel like that was like a really complex, like we're talking about, like this whole movie was just absolutely just complex characters just the entire time for sure. Yeah. And I do like that they kind of kept Fassbender as like a complex character as well. Like he wasn't just this like seedy villain. It was like, if someone's going to sleep with a 15-year-old girl that's an adult, what might the story actually be? And I feel like this is why it's like so insidious and so weird, because it is just like this guy just might come into your life, and he might have a family somewhere, and you have no idea, and then he
And
just sweeps this girl off her feet, kind of. He's like the only thing that's nice to her. Kind of getting at like how I forgot what I was gonna say.
God damn it.
No, I remember. It was like
Okay, go on.
he was like the only like kind of rock that she had for a while, and it was like everyone that she knew either thought she was stupid or too mean or a waste of space, and he was like the first person that came in that was like, hey, like, you like dancing? That's cool. Like, he just totally was everything she needed, and unfortunately that played out not so well. But I thought it was just like such a realistic way to like look at like how the situation might actually happen, and I feel like this
Yeah.
movie like really kind of nailed exactly like why these types of events go down. Like, it was tragic and crazy, but it was very, I believed everything that was happening the whole time.
Yeah. And that scene where like they hook up is like, because she's like she's she's like he's like comforting her, and like he like sees her dance and everything, and like it's all she wanted is like someone to look up to and someone to kind of take care of her, and the fact that he takes advantage of it, it makes that like whole scene like so terrible. Because there's that scene
Yeah.
he's like petting her head like you do like a little kid, and you kind of feel like what's coming, and it's kind of like, nah,
Well, and,
don't
like,
do it, don't do it to her.
Like, 'cause she like wants to be a dancer, but she's so like kind of like weird and sheltered and alone that she doesn't even realize she's like accidentally applying to work at like a strip club.
Yeah.
It's like I also really like to like, it's like the opposite of like a Honey style movie where it's like, oh, she's this amazing dancer Raina Braga. It's like, no, she's not bad, but she's not really good either. She's just like she's as good as like a 15-year-old watching YouTube would be.
Right.
And I think that's like, it's like the anti like follow your dreams movie.
Yeah.
Which it's a downer,
Yeah, definitely.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, like the whole, I feel like when they listen to that Nas song, it's like life's a bitch and then you die. Like, I don't know. This whole
yeah.
And I
like
feel like
like dancing with her mom at the end, who like she kind of hates, and like you should hate her. She's like the worst mom I've ever, like.
I feel like in that
still,
moment
like,
when they were
something.
dancing together, she like finally understood her mom in a way. Like she kind of like finally like saw her mom as someone who has also been dicked over in life constantly, and like they just have this dance together that like means so much like to them, but will never mean anything long term. Well, I don't know who's to say, but
See, I don't know. Like that last scene, to me, it was I had on because I kind of saw it as like, this is the only, like, it's that same thing where like if when you're all like at a job that you kind of hate, and then one of you leaves, like there's that kind of celebration, but it's more like, oh, we both understand that we're not going to be like the only thing that brought us together was that we were all in the same place at the same time, and
Kind of
that's never going to happen again,
a funeral dirge.
Yeah, that's kind of how I saw it. What about you?
And she doesn't even ask where the daughter's going either. The daughter just says she's leaving, and the mom's like, cool, why aren't you gone?
But I think it's like they like understand each other in that scene where it's just like, okay, like this is all it was.
And then, I was hoping like the mom would run out and like give her some cash or something, And
No.
It's a bleak movie. It's not...
I know I've been talking a lot, but about the mom, like one thing that I really, really liked was that like for most of the movie, like they don't really show the mom's face that well.
Mm-hmm.
So you're always like kind of like trying to see what she looks like, kind of.
Yeah.
So like towards the end, you kind of like get some close-ups on her face, but I feel like that's just like how Mia saw her mom, was like she never really saw the face of her mom. Like she never really was very intimate with her. Like, and that's kind of, that was like a really cool visual way to kind of like make us also feel distance, but like interested in the mom, like probably how Mia and her sister felt.
Yeah, and I was gonna say like the camera work, because they do the same thing with Fassbender, where every scene before they hook up, he's like shot in like the best way. He looks super handsome, and then afterwards, I mean, she doesn't see her that much afterwards, but afterwards, it's quick cuts. It like the camera's moving around a lot more. He's in more darks and silhouettes, and I was like, because it's like that's what I'm saying. Like this is one of the best movies I've seen where it really shows the character's point of view, like from the writing, from the framing, like from the camera work, and when the characters are lit and not lit, it really shows like how she sees everyone. Like I don't know, I thought that was super cool because that's definitely something we tried, and so it was very effective.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's because this I've obviously seen it a couple times. I think it's the third time I've seen it. So I was like more on the lookout for things. Obviously, I assume anyone who sees this kind of figures where it's headed with Michael Fassbender. It's not like it's super cloaked or hidden.
Right.
But I was paying really close attention to every single interaction between the two of them, and almost every single interaction that they have is starts out as like a typical almost father-daughter interaction, things that you'd expect to see. I mean, helping her catch a fish, giving her money, tucking her into bed, things like that. And it
She even climbs on his back.
yeah, piggyback ride. It starts out very straightforward and innocent, and every single one of those scenes progresses to a flirty level to where you can see she's clearly immature and young and cannot figure out the blurring lines there. But like, even when he's putting her to bed after she was drunk and fell asleep on the mom's bed, he's taking her shoes off and like carefully and then it progresses to he takes her pants off,
kind of like
which
lingers,
kind of creepy.
Yeah.
And then
you're like, maybe it wasn't weird, but it was weird.
Yeah.
Or like where he's giving her the money and he like holds it up for her to jump, and like is kind of flirting with her, or he's tending to her wound. He's like kind of caressing her ankle afterwards. But they all start is like very much like fatherly things, very standard fatherly things that you would expect a father and a child to do. Which is why I was talking earlier about how when I saw it, it led to a lot of conversation and debate, and most of it was around Michael Fassbender's character and how much of a predator he was. Because some people were like, he's building it the entire, like he's clearly grooming her towards this relationship. I disagreed. The big debate that I had with someone, and later, like I said, when I was watching with Josh, I was like, oh, this person is so wrong. But keep in mind that there was no Wikipedia entry or anything at this time that spelled out that, yes, I was right. She saw it as do you guys do spoilers on here? I don't know.
Yeah. This is on Tubi. Just watch it or don't.
Spoilers. But when she figures out, he has this like middle-class family, the person that I was discussing with thought that he was like a gypsy, kind of like a gypsy type character. Is that a slur now?
Yeah. Roma, like a Roma. I mean, there are other Roma in the movie.
Yeah, but she saw that as a contrast, which was why the other character was there. And she was like, no, I don't think that's his family. I think he jumps from family to family, and they always seem to have little kids with them. And I was like, that's pretty clearly his wife and daughter.
Yeah, for sure.
Which it is. Again, when I was rewatching, I was like, she calls him like daddy multiple times. It's very clearly his wife and daughter. But I will say that person, and again, at the time, we didn't have anything that had spelled out that was true. But she made very good points with it. And I was like, I could see her point of view with it. And it's an interesting characteristic. But again, then when I watched it this time, I was like, oh, no, it's definitely a family.
I actually did think that when that scene started. But then, like you said, there was like a lot of context clues that were like, oh, no, this is his actual family. But so I could see how she could have thought that. And like, sometimes when you're watching a movie, you'll like start thinking something and then it won't escape your brain even when it stops. Like,
the Ferris Bueller's not real bullshit type of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
I think, like, I could almost go with it, but the fact that he freaks out after they sleep together is very like, no, if he was like the actual like, this guy, he would have stayed and handled it better than being like, I gotta go, I messed up,
If anything, he would have stayed and tried to keep doing it, and he runs out,
Also, can I say, like, the most messed up scene in the movie? Not the actual assault scene. The next morning, when her mom is like, oh, I wanted to abort you, by the way. I almost aborted you. It's like, you don't know if she's saying that because she's jealous, because she knows something happened with the daughter, and is like, that's her, like, takeaway. Or if she just says that to her daughter, like, often enough. That it literally doesn't matter because she's that like shitty of a mother.
Right, she's that awful. Because they do indicate like there's a creaking noise right after they've slept together that it's possible the mom saw it, or that
it's all ambiguous.
Connor told her and then just bounced. but because the mom is so awful, it could have nothing to do with that, and she's just flat out just saying that because.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's like one of the best things is that if you're dealing with such a tricky subject, you don't want to do the like he's evil. You want to make it seem like this is why. And I think again, it's. I think that any director can tell any story, but I think that the fact this is a female director, there's insight in there that I don't think a male director could kind of reach
Yeah.
for.
I think so for sure.
I think like it's kind of cool how it shows. It's British, and I mean, let me get this out of the way. All British people are evil, but
As we
it's
know.
like it shows like class, but in a way where it's like, oh, everyone's kind of shitty and poor in this, but like different levels. Like she goes to like the Roma camp, and they're like dirt poor, like living in
Right.
cars poor, and then she's in like this like horrible apartment, and then he's like a guy who works at Home Depot who's like 45, but that's still like the coolest guy she's ever met, is like, oh, he has a job. Wow. Like he works for a living. So it's kind of cool to see how it's like, oh, everyone's kind of like seduced by what they think is like a better, because then like in the end, she does kind of like willingly go with like the one like Roma guy who's like nice to her. And it's like,
Yeah.
okay. So it's probably not going to be better, but it's something different than like the life she's leading. It's like, I don't know. It's interesting.
I kind of saw the ending as because she does go off with like a Roma guy, but I saw it as like it's not so much like she's not sure if she's gonna stay with that guy. It's just an escape, and he's like offering
it's a way
it. So
out, for
she's
sure.
just taking the only way
Mm.
she knows.
You could say she got out of her fish tank, right, John?
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know. Is that?
Gosh, Fish Tank is the name of the movie.
Oh, I kept being like, "Where's Dory and Nemo?
Yeah.
Are they going to
no.
show up?"
They were probably
One of the things, and Stephanie, maybe you might give me insight, but I think that like one of my favorite things about it is that the girl, the main character, whether it was how she was written, I think there was a lot of. It feels like there was a lot of improv on the set, but it feels like it's one of the best portrayals of being like when you're a teenager and like you don't understand like that being a dick is bad sometimes, like where she's just kind of like there's like that scene where she's like constantly yelling at Michael Fassbender and then like he just kind of walks away and she doesn't understand like that he's just not gonna take it like everyone else, like it's just that kind of weird teen thing. And I was like, oh, I definitely have seen that behavior and have done that behavior, and so I thought that was very well done.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's one of those things too where again where you pull somebody off the street like that to be the actor. I'm sure she grew up in the place that they filmed it at, like that's where she lived. So I mean she knows about that and all of that territory and things. And I also think it's really the other movie that I almost picked was by Chloe Zhao, who did Nomadland. That wasn't the movie I was going to pick, but she's also known for doing that, of picking non-actors. And I think the two things that they have in common that I like, again, like with Nomadland, all of those people were like actual nomads except Frances McDormand, whereas in this movie, it's all non-actors and then Michael Fassbender. And I almost feel like you can do that, but you almost need that one grounding force, like where he's a really, really good actor and he can bring that complexity to the role to really bring out those performances in everyone else as well. So I think it is important. And part of that too is that I'm sure, Andrew, you know about this. A lot of the times they'll do that, not as so much that, but because he's going to take up half of their budget. And he's the one name person that they can put in it, even though he wasn't like big yet. But in general, that's also why those things tend to happen. Is he's your star power.
That was the Empty Spaces priest before we couldn't get match anyone's budget. We're like, hey,
no, that's why every one of my movies stars Big Dreams himself, Pablo Medina.
I was gonna say I know another director who pulls people off the streets. His name's Andrew Hatta.
He takes half of the budget. But yeah, and I think I think that's cool. I'm always, because I do it, but for different reasons than other directors do it. I do it.
You're like, I get him out of my house.
Yeah, and because if I don't do it, Pablo will scream at me for like a month. But I think like it's so interesting when they use non-actors, especially when it works like in this way. And I think it works best when you use non-young actors because they're not even at the level where they have that much like they can't get in their head as much because they don't have like 30 years of
Yeah.
disappointments and so and again like she does such an amazing job. There's like it's just like super good and I don't know. Whenever you see like a teen, because like acting is hard even if you're an adult, and so to see a teen do it well, it's almost like even more impressive. And like yeah, and I think it like the movies that works best in like Stephanie mentioned No Man Land, it's like you do need like one of the best actors of all time to ground it, like you were saying, and like Fassbender and the girl in No Man Land, Frances McDonald, like you need that caliber of acting to kind of be able to like everyone can connect to, you know.
Yeah, I agree.
As,
Like in the end of Captain Phillips, where it's those two non-actors and Tom Hanks, that's like the best scene in the movie, and
Yeah.
it's like, oh, they're just feeding off how good he's doing, like
Yeah.
kind of like the momentum of that. So it's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. It's like what we say on the Navi, they're the tree of life.
Absolutely.
Pause for effect.
And then and as soon as this, I'm going to insert the entirety of the Way of Water.
Yeah.
And then we'll
Okay,
come
why
back.
is
It's available right now.
Yeah, and then I thought Michael Fassbender did. It
I
is.
did-
Oh, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Well, it's looking back on these, you understand why like every single Fassbender role has been so complicated. Because even like I think everyone agrees that he's the best part of like Prometheus, and his performance is just kind of like, oh, I
No
understand.
bar, but
Yeah, I understand why you would trust an actor with this difficult of a role, and so it's like, yeah,
Yeah.
it's crazy his talent.
Yeah.
you also talked about obviously Katie Jarvis, but I do have to say the little girl, her little sister in it, is also fantastic. I know she's used a lot as comic relief which is you do laugh even though it's really sad actually.
Yeah, you're like this girl's gonna have a bad life.
But she's really good as well. And you kind of see, that moment too where like they're watching a show that's definitely not appropriate for them and they're smoking and then there's like little kitty stickers all over their bed.
Yeah.
You kind of see like how Mia grew up as well.
It's like extra sad.
Yeah, it was like definitely
at least in America,
for sure.
they wouldn't
Like
have that
little girl.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think like that last scene where she says bye to the daughter or the sister, and the sister's like, "Don't forget about me." Like she's so desperate to, and like you realize that the sister's only good thing was they were the only good thing about their lives, and like it wasn't enough, and it like that makes it even more heartbreaking. Like it was a rough ending because even the mom, you don't necessarily want the mom to fail. You want her to like fix her life or like show some sign of
nice once.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so you definitely don't want the two innocent girls to like have a fucked up life, but it's just kind of like there's no other choice,
Yeah.
That's the way it goes. And then I was like one of the mutant hunters coming to find Magneto with his current secret family. But I guess that's the
Stephanie, next time we can kick Josh off. Like
To be fair, in those X-Men movies, he does hide out with a lot of like secret families. That
he's
for some reason that happens like 3 times.
I'll do Magneto, but only if I also get a secret family in this one. It's like, okay, I don't. Why though? Another thing I liked about it, like I don't know, Stephanie, if you or William, have you guys ever seen like a Larry Clark film? He did like Bully. He wrote Kids.
Yeah, I've seen Kids.
I've seen Kids, yeah.
Hey, I've seen movies. I saw Kids.
I feel like
Didn't
they
like
both kind of have these like super bleak, this is what happens to real poor kids like mentality. But I think the difference is that this movie understands like these kids and like kind of loves them, where I feel like Larry Clark hates those kids and he's kind of showing you why he hates them. And that's what I was like, if you wanted to see what like a male version of this, like watch a Larry Clark film and you're gonna feel gross afterwards. He's just like a weirdly weird director. But like, so that's I appreciated this movie, even though it's bleak. I was never like, oh man, I feel gross. We should turn this off. You know, like you want to you keep hoping that the characters are gonna like that something good's gonna happen, and at the end, it's kind of like that realization. It hits
Yeah.
you in a way where it makes you care about people again, where Bully does not. You know.
Yeah, Mia's not hopeless. She's just doesn't know anything about life, and everything's been just so disillusioned. But I don't know. I feel hope for Mia. I feel hope for her
She's
little
got a
sister.
will. She's like strong inside. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I think overall it's like probably what's one of the heaviest movies we've done, but I think it's great. I think it's cool, and it's definitely underlooked. I know for a while it was on like Netflix, and so I think like it was like I had heard of it because of being on Netflix, and like you heard a lot of praise coming out of the festivals, but now it's like a couple years down the road, and so it's definitely one that I think people should look up again.
Yeah,
So,
I might have heard of it in passing, but I didn't really know much about this movie, like at all, going into it. I was hoping I was watching the right one.
I don't know if you saw on Tubi, there was like a million Finding Nemo shark tail knockoffs called like fish tails that came up, and I was kind of hoping somebody picked up one of those.
William's like, when did Skippy the shark like get back to his house? I thought that was a really good part.
Yeah. He's just been. It's like, how have you been keeping along, William?
He's like, there was a sexual assault in that one too.
Michael Fassbender also, showed up.
An angel fish.
In all of them. But yeah, any final thoughts on Fish Tank?
I was really glad that you guys picked it. I didn't know what to expect, but I was blown away from scene one till the very end. So I'm just glad that I've seen this movie now. Like, I wholeheartedly recommend this to anybody for sure. It was dark, but it was good.
Also, speaking of that, when we were talking about first impressions, I saw this movie on Netflix when it was on Netflix, and all I saw was like, Netflix starts the video a little bit, so like the trailer starts with her dancing hip hop. So I pressed play because I thought it was about a girl who does hip hop.
Oh,
and like I thought it was gonna be like a Step It Up type.
Technically, it is just
it's a very real version.
How you see everyone else they beat. Step It Up.
Yeah,
she's like one of the ones they beat whose life just didn't go well.
Yeah.
So.
But yeah, what about Josh, Stephanie? Any last words?
Yeah, I just find her. She has another movie that's very critically acclaimed, but I've never watched and I've always wanted to. But it's 3 hours, so it's one of those like I have to set time aside for. Called American Honey, where she did the same thing.
Oh.
He's getting restless.
The Fat Man debut.
But yeah, she did American Honey, and I've heard it's fantastic, and it's kind of also about like teens.
And Shia LaBeouf's in it, so you have to kind of prepare yourself for that, So
for an actual sexual assault.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I haven't gotten to that. She's actually won, I want to say, like 3 jury awards at the Cannes Film Festival. Like this one won the award, the jury award for the Cannes Film Festival, Fish Tank. And I was telling Josh, I was like, oh, you probably have heard of this director because her first like mainstream big break was she was supposed to be the showrunner and the writer and director for the 2nd season of Big Little Lies on HBO. And that was basically... they came and like re-edited and re-scened, and she was like, this is not what I directed and wrote. And it is bad. It is bad.
But it's bad in that way where you could tell that someone like screwed it all up. Like there's a lot of good elements in there, but it just feels disjointed.
You could see it's an editing problem. Yeah.
And like the current good version of that, The Idol.
Yeah, it is what it made me think of. Because they also did that to that female showrunner.
Yeah, Turkey Nights.
So, yeah, I thought that's one of the reasons. It's funny because I got made fun of for this in one of my film classes at film school, and then I was like, I did it here again. But the 2 movies that I had to choose between both featured horse deaths. and I absolutely hate animals dying or anything like that. And somehow I always end up picking a movie where an animal.
This is off screen though. There's not,
Yeah,
there's not on
Yeah.
screen horse stuff.
It's not as bad, but still, I don't like to
It's not
see
like Game
horse
of Thrones with like they're cutting off its head.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Although I never felt bad about the Game of Thrones because it was always so ridiculous, and they always cut off the
Yeah.
head.
Like a kind of comic.
And it would always split open like in Animaniacs. But yeah,
Those
I
two
was
are
glad-
always paired. Yeah. Constantly put up side by side.
But yeah, I think that's cool, and I think like I hope she gets more like big opportunities, or even like seeing what she can do with such a little budget, and just the fact that she tells like superhuman stories. I think that's awesome. I'm very excited to see what she does next.
Yeah.
Hopefully, she doesn't get fired from other HBO shows because HBO's like apparently their goal is to fire every woman they hire.
It is to lose money. Yeah.
Homeboys.
But go see The Flash. Yeah. So yeah, thank you, Stephanie, for coming along. Next time we bring you along, we pick the movie for you, and it's gonna start with a 65.
And it probably won't be as good.
That's it.
Man,
yeah, thank you for coming.
can you imagine like trying to get 5 minutes of discussion out of the movie 65?
You're like, you know what? It's got hair.
Is that
Yeah.
baseball movie?
No,
No,
it's
no.
the Adam Driver go back in time and fight dinosaurs movie.
Oh no! What?
Yeah.
It sounds interesting.
It sounds
right?
really
it's
cool.
Not. It's so boring.
No.
It's,
well, fuck that.
Yeah.
It's not even like like Jurassic World. You're like, oh, this is bad, but
It's
I
not
guess at
funny
least
bad.
you can watch the dinosaurs.
Yeah.
It's like, no, I'm just bored.
It's like taking a Benadryl and trying to like read like a boring thing on your phone. Like you want to fall asleep.
There's one cool thing, and it's literally a picture. Like you just see, like there's no difference between a still of it and actually watching the movie. It's just a
Yeah.
bunch of pterodactyls on a beach, and it's like it
Yeah.
doesn't look that different, and that's the only cool part. But yeah, we'll pick it next time. But thank you for coming along, Josh, William. Thank you guys, and I watched The Empty Space. It's coming to Tubi. We'll find out when I post this. And
And you
so,
could do the double feature of Fish Tank and then Empty Space.
yeah, we both have very real human stories that
Yeah.
take place in the real world. And we both pulled people off the streets.
Mhm.
People named Pablo Medina. But yeah, thank you for coming, Stephanie. And we'll see everyone else next time on